Hello there, thank you for staying with us and welcome to another edition of Channels Beam. I'm Victor Matthias. Now, the die seems to be cast as all the presidential candidates have now been announced by their parties, of course, ahead of the 2023 elections. However, the choice of the APC, which is a replica of the SDP in 1993, has got tongues wagging. Today on the program, we will look at the manifestos of the candidates, why a Muslim ticket was acceptable in 1993 but seems to be raising dust 30 years ago. We will take a look at these and more in a moment, but just before that, let's see what the social media trends were like in the past week.
Over 700,000 residents of Osun State trooped out to decide who will govern the Southwest State for the next 4 years. Serving Governor Adegboyega Oyetola squared off against Ademola Adeleke of the PDP, former Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives Yusuf Lasun of the Labour Party, amongst others. At the end of the exercise, INEC declared Mr. Ademola Adeleke winner after he polled 403,371 votes.
Well, there you go. Those were some of the trends now in the past week. Actually, the most trend with more interactions. But joining us to look at today's topic, of which you can be part of just by tweeting at us at Channels TV at Victor_MBIDI, as well as at Channels Beam. We have with us right here in the Lagos studio Emeka Eze. He is a businessman and, of course, a political commentator. It's a pleasure to have you in the studio today.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. We also have joining us from our Abuja studio, Olubunmi Ayotunji. He is a legislative draftsman. He is also a government relations advisor, and he is as well a lobbyist. It's a pleasure to have you as well joining us today.
Thank you very much, Victor. I hope you can hear me.
Of course, I can hear you.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, good. So, kicks out the conversation for us, from that end. What do you make of the current candidates we have, as it is now, as it stands?
I think, very good. Thank you very much for having me, Victor. I think currently in Nigeria, the tide has moved from literally having, as they would say on social media, having to choose between the bad and the lesser evil or something. Now we have a balanced candidacy, as I would like to put it. I think the options are now very, very clear for the electorate to pick from. We don't have to be literally stuck to the two-party system, quote and unquote, that we've had before now. Now we have options, an array of options for the electorate. I think it's going to be interesting going forward, looking at the fact that we now have candidates that are pushing their manifestos stricto sensu. We have candidates that are talking strictly on the issues, knowing the fact that the electorate are now knowledgeable, are now interested in what they bring to the table. The electorates now want to know the quality of the candidates and what they're actually bringing for Nigerians. It's going to be an interesting season going forward, and we are here to watch it all.
All right. Let me bring Emeka to the conversation. He says it's going to be an interesting season.
Well,
Do you agree, or what's your view about the situation?
I want to totally agree with him. For me, it's going to be a very different drama. All three players are very conversant with what's expected of them, and the electorate themselves are not the usual kind. And the expectations are high. The conversations are different. People are looking at issues. People are looking at what should be talked about. People are looking beyond just what it is, your person is, your experience in politics. People are beginning to talk about economy, are beginning to talk about issues. The conversations are issues-based, and so the expectations are very high. So I agree with him, and the good thing about it is that we have three players who understand what's going on, who have high-level experience, who have competence within their own definition of what the word means. Trust me, Victor, the expectations are high, and I believe the elections will be something different and very interesting.
Yeah, so you keep talking about three players. Meanwhile, we have a lot more candidates.
Forgive me. Forgive me if I have said so. If I had said so about three players. When I said three players, it's way more. I haven't even mentioned who the three players are, so I'm still safe.
Indeed.
But then, usually in the past, it's been two parties. where we're having a thought force is something we're not very used to. It's coming new to us, where the thought force is becoming even loud, and people are beginning to, in fact, the conversations are more about the thought force, and then there's, permit me to say, a thought force, and then there are other people that people are beginning to look at. So the elections, as far as I'm concerned, is not going to be very easy. We're going to have pockets of, surprises here and there, where you see relatively unknown parties emerging, having House of Assembly members. And so after this political dispensation, after these elections in 2023, there's going to be a lot of work we need to do at the political scene, trying to harmonize all these things together to form a government. So forgive me if I use the word three. The many parties, everyone who is in the system right now should be prepared, or you're not part of the elections, because the electorates aren't smiling.
Well, talking about the electorate, so let me bring back Olubunmi into the conversation. Olubunmi, talking about the electorates, both of you quite seem to agree on one thing, that, it's no longer, the usual that we've had in the past. So what is changing this time around? Of course, I know that I have also seen, I'm witness to the way people actually trooped out to get their PVCs. So what exactly has changed? Why did people all of a sudden, why did the electorates all of a sudden get so interested, queued under the sun, all of that, just to make sure they have their PVCs?
All right, there are a number of factors that are raising the interest of Nigerians in the electoral system. I can't exhaust them all. But first, you should understand now that we have an implosion, literally an implosion of young persons that are interested in the polity, everything that goes on in the polity, not just elections. Why? Because now we have social media changing culture, influencing culture, literally. We have an array of young persons that are literally badly affected by the policies and economic downturns of events in Nigeria. We have persons that have been forced to be involved in the political process because of suffering, literally, and because of the impact, the direct impact of the policies of government on their businesses, on their families, and on their whole life. So what affects you directly as a young person, you want to get directly involved. And again, right, we now have candidates that are basically being assessed, not because of where they come from, not because of their party or their religious leanings, we'll talk about that later, but basically because of their antecedents, what they have done, what they are bringing, and even the things they have said so far. We have, as you will know, young persons would actually contribute a whole lot in the pool of this incoming electorate. Young persons would be voting a whole lot in 2023. Why is that? Nigeria has over 60% population of young persons, and they are the deciders, I dare say, of these elections. And like I said before, we've had policies where means of livelihood and their source of livelihood has been badly affected by policies of government. And what happens when young persons or persons that have hitherto not been interested in the old political game and all that, when they are interested, is that the whole thing changes. Questions are now being asked. Candidates have moved beyond insults and queries to really talking about what they would do. The questions now have moved from who are you to how are you going to do these things. A candidate comes and says, I want to fix security. Now young persons in this country are asking, how? What have you done in the little capacity you have held over time? So the questions are clear now. And I think it's a good thing for the country that we have moved past some mediocre sentiments to actually wanting good leadership, irrespective of where you're from, whether you're from the minority or majority, irrespective of where you represent. We actually want intellect. We want persons that have delivered and that will deliver. If there is anything, I think what is leading citizens' interest in the policy and politics of this country is the fact that there's hope. I think there's a renewed hope now that if we have a very good, let me say, president, or if we elect good leaders, let me put it that way, things might change. Things just might change, and that singular hope has been influencing what you see on social media and what you see now and the recent interest in PVC collections. And recently, you'd also observe what happened in Osun, my home state, and my local government alone, where I was raised, Ede, producing over 20,000 votes. It's overwhelming, surprising, and I think it's encouraging. So I would push that things like this continue. I'll push that interest like this in the electoral system be encouraged by INEC and every other stakeholders going forward.
All right, very well. I mean, so he made mention of the fact that young people pretty much will be the deciders, in this coming election, as he said, happened just over the weekend, in the Austrian election. So, one would begin to wonder, why is that constituency not pushing a young person to take the position, looking at the fact that the not too young to run, has pretty much paved that way, for young people now to be in the race, at this time. So why are the young people not standing solidly behind one of them to say, okay, go forward, and, push our interest for us, since we are the future of tomorrow?
Honestly, Victor, I like to be very realistic. It's one thing for there to be legislative processes that bring about, the consciousness for young people to run, the not too young to run thing. But then, realistically, how possible is it? Can we jump into it at this time immediately? Bearing in mind that the capacity to measure, or the parameter to measure capacity at the moment still remains money. The stomach infrastructure, the problem with poverty has made it almost impossible for certain people to even delve into politics. He talked about something very important. What disappeared over time was hope. And what people are looking for right now is anything that gives hope. Too many people have been affected by what has gone on over time. Small business owners have been affected. Students who are even, in the process of coming into the labor market have been affected directly or indirectly. Cost of food and commodities are high. Right. People are feeling its pinch, on the skin. And moreover, not just from the inside. Those who would come in and invest in the process are losing confidence in what's happening in Nigeria. So the conversation right now goes beyond just, what certain sentiments that people raise. So I think that for the young people to be actively involved, it takes it's a gradual process as far as I'm concerned, and it will happen over time. Because so many things, questions, the conversations are changing from how big he is, who is he, how much does he have, to competence, which breaks down into different things like capacity, to handle that position, understanding of the problems, deep understanding of the problems, your track records, and most importantly, way to go. It's okay for you to say, this man has malaria. But what do you do, bearing in mind that he has malaria? You probably do not know. So putting all this together is what gives people, when you listen to people, I hate to sound partisan, I hate to mention names. When you have a candidate, for instance, telling you that we need to move from just consuming to producing, then someone like me who's very passionate about, who has a lot of interest in local production, someone like me who is very interested in what we can do within, instead of depending on what we have outside, will begin to say, oh, I want to listen to this man. Like, how do you think we can do it? Now there'll be interest, and you have my attention. And I believe that's what's happening around. Where you still have a little bit of sentiments playing around, the tribe, party, religion, and the rest of them, it's gradually fading off, because the hunger doesn't know tribe. The poverty doesn't know these things we're talking about. And over time, it will get even deeper and deeper, and the conversations will get to the extent where if you have nothing to offer, even your blood relation won't vote you.
Yeah, because I was going to say that, these three things, like these three pillars, religion, ethnicity, and party, they are pretty much, part and parcel of Nigerian politics. But going by what you're saying, you're beginning to say that the surface is being scratched.
Yes.
That is being moved aside. But for how long, would we continue to have this before it is completely, separated from the politics of Nigeria?
Believe me, the speed at which we are moving right now, my co-speaker said something about his own place. Osun was a litmus test. The result is an eye-opener. It's beginning to show. Even those who had, the vote buying thing didn't change a lot of people's minds. They took it. They see it as their right. They took whatever you had as your vote buying currency, and they still did what they had to do. Because people, I heard a woman told me the other time, she said, after this opportunity, the next one will come in 2031, and that sounded scary. So the conversations are getting deeper. I may tell you here right now that in the next 4 years things will get, but it may be even shorter, because right now it is. Because if, for instance, some states carry out the elections and they vote right. And other states won't want to make such mistakes. They want to be carried along. So the conversations will continue. A lot of people would say there are no voters on social media, but definitely there should be a platform where conversations will thrive. And social media has presented itself as the most viable, and over time it will continue. People will continue to ask questions, and in the course of the next few months, it's 8 months to the election. In the course of time, events would unfold. So many things would happen. Questions would be asked.
Yeah.
A lot of mind changing. People would begin to wonder, oh, I think I've been a fool all this while. It should be this and not this. And so let's watch and see.
Yeah, let's keep watching. But, let me hold you there for a bit. We'll take a quick break. And, of course, when we come back, I would also address the elephant in the room. That's in a moment. Please stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. We still have with us our guests in the Lagos studio as well as the Abuja studio. But just before we went on break, Emeka Eze here in the Lagos studio was talking about, the power that social media has in shaping elections. But I'm going to be moving this conversation to Abuja studio where Olubunmi Ayotunji, is standing by as well. Olubunmi, so he talked about social media being pretty much a driver. But as it is now, the usual comment is that elections are not won on social media. How would you say that played out, over the weekend in your state? Was there any social media mobilization or any, online conversation that, went offline and, it affected the results, or what was the situation?
All right. Before I move into your question, I'd like to, with your permission, kindly comment on the question you asked about, will there be ever a time where religion or probably ethnicity be moved away from our body politic or probably from the way we choose candidates in elections? I, first of all, do not think that it should be. I don't think it should be taken away from the way we choose our candidates, because even in developed countries, our democracy is modeled after that of the United States. And in the United States, they have the Johnson Amendment that former President Trump was trying to amend and all that. So before I would explain much on that, I'll talk about Osun. So social media, right, over time has been shaping culture and policy. I'm a student of policy and legislative studies, so I understand that if an issue comes to the social media today, and it gets enough influencing, it gets enough comment, it gets enough riling from young persons, and it goes into the mainstream of policymakers, they act on it. Social media is beyond the phones and the typings. It is shaping culture all over the world. That's why you see countries of this world now regulating the whole platform and the rest of it. As far as Osun is concerned, pushing the candidacy of the now governor-elect, the social media actually had a whole lot of influence. In that, one of the major music exports in our country today, I wouldn't want to mention names, is a family member of the governor-elect. And most of the youth mobilization it did was on social media. Every time, for example, what happened in Ife, where they had issues with collation and transferring results, it got to the social media and you could see people tagging and calling out INEC and then from Abuja here and all that. You cannot overemphasize the fact that social media has been, I call it a policy alarm clock. If you have any problem that you want to scale up to the policy makers or to legitimate organs of government, you can type. If I type currently, there's a particular agency of government, FCCPC. It's led by Mr. Tunde Irukera. If you tag competitions, Nigerian competition, something I've forgotten their name, today on Twitter, and you want them to act because you were not satisfied with a particular organization's consumer protection policy, they act immediately. Now, so when you have social media controlling the actions and the response, citizens' response, as I will put it, then you cannot say social media is impotent. It's potent now, and now politicians have personal handles where they reply their supporters on social media. If social media is impotent, why are they there? Social media is influencing policies. And one of the major contenders that was hitherto believed to be the third force, or probably a newcomer into the entrant, into the arena, is now a force just because of social media. Now you hear the whole obedient thing everywhere. Where did it start from? The social media.
Social media.
It started from the social media. And now you have a huge mobilization of young persons. And I would say that judging the movement, or the obedient movement, quote and unquote, by the results of what happened in Osun would be an anomaly, a huge mistake, a very huge mistake, because the mobilization is going around a person, not political strata in states. Hello, can you hear me, please?
Yes, we can hear you. Please go ahead. We can hear you here. Go ahead.
I think I lost them.
No, we can hear you.
We can hear you.
All right. Anyways, we'll come back to him again. But, so going by his, by his postulations, let me just put it that way, talking about how it is driving, people believe that, it goes beyond, what happens at the polling booth. I mean, if you'd want to, I don't know what you think about that, but, it just doesn't, for me, it just doesn't end at when you thumbprint. Yeah, yes. So what should people be doing? I mean, pretty much.
Yes. I've said this times without number on some platforms. I said we've talked about who we consider to be competent. We've talked about our choices. Now we're talking about, then we moved on from choices to level of involvement and participation in the electoral process, starting with obtaining your PVC. Now, when we're done with that, the next would be the electoral process itself. It goes beyond just thumbprinting. For your votes. I saw, on a lighter note, I saw some very beautiful drama in Osun State where, I don't want to be quoted on that. I just saw that on social media where some electoral officers were finding it difficult to, to transmit results, and people would come out to say, no, I've got hotspots, I've got internet for you. So that's people following up their mandates to be sure that things get to the end. So if we begin to, I'm sure that's what parties are beginning to do now, because I've engaged a lot of people in different conversations, and what people are beginning to talk about now is the understanding of what structure should be. Structure is not just about putting offices around. It's about having people representing the parties at those polling units, people ensuring things are properly done, people ensuring votes are properly counted, people ensuring votes are properly transmitted, people ensuring that the right things are done. That's the only way you can defend your mandate. Because thanks to the Electoral Act, and a big thank you to His Excellency the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria for signing that into law. That on its own gives a certain, level of hope to both the electorates and, politicians themselves. And so I think the conversations now should go from just the choices, because I believe everyone has his mind made up, at least for now, should go into, more public enlightenment on what the electoral process is, to teach people what contributions they can make to ensure that results are properly delivered.
Lastly, before I let you go, 30 years ago, Nigerians accepted a Muslim ticket. What has changed now? There's been a lot of, talk here and there, with the choice of one of the candidates. What do you think could have been the difference?
I want to say very quickly, like I would always say, the conversations at that time was different. The level of participation, the level of interest were very different. I knew at that time, even I understand the Christian Association of Nigeria even endorsed, the two people that I know, the two exceptions that I know who flew that kind of tickets were Buhari and Idiagbo. It was military 83 to 85, and then Abiola and Kingibe in 1993. These people had, the acceptance was wide. But over that period of time, the conversations are becoming different. People are beginning to, because of, the vacuum created by bad leadership, people are beginning to struggle for, certain level of accommodation, certain level of protection, because you're beginning to understand that for infrastructural provision of infrastructure, it's beginning to, everything is being seen from the angle of geopolitical zones. So everyone is looking for some level of, permit me to say, some level of, comfort or, inclusion. Yeah. And so because those conversations changed now, it's now no longer like when someone from the South will see another person from the South as the same. Yeah. We now have geopolitical zones where the South-South want to be protected, the Northeast, the Southeast, the Southwest. So the conversations changed. I think that's what affected it. Perhaps. So right now, permit me to say, it will be a serious issue because diversity, equity, and inclusion is the only thing right now that ensures a peaceful atmosphere. All right. Everyone has to be included. The Constitution is even there in the Constitution. 14.3.
This is a good point to drop the conversation.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you, Victor, for
having us on the program. Unfortunately, we lost Ayrton G on the show along the line, but thanks as well to him. Thanks to you for joining us and sharing
Thank you
your
very
thoughts.
much, Victor.
Well, that's where we are. We'll leave you with the most viewed videos on our YouTube channel in the past week. Thank you so very much for watching. I'm Victor Matthias.
This week's videos begins with the election victory celebration in Osun State by PDP stalwarts, including Edo State Governor Godwin Obaseki and former Senate President Dr. Bukola Saraki. It's followed by the slamming of the Labour Party in Osun State during a rally by APC presidential candidate Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Third spot sees President Buhari during his Salah message, hoping that terrorists would understand that Nigeria's problem is to be productive.
The people that are organizing themselves and are taking institutions and so on, they know them, let them report them to the security agencies.
In second is the candidate of the Labour Party, making known to Nigerians who his running mate in the 2023 presidential election is. While topping the charts is the performance by music icon Davido during the PDP rally ahead of the governorship election, which the PDP eventually won.